This regular meeting of the City Council will now come to order. Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Counsel Capone.
Here.
Counsel Della Sola.
Here.
Counsel DeFlorio. Counsel Hanlon.
Here.
Counsel Matusky. Here. Counsel McKinnon. Counsel McLaughlin. Here. Counsel Napolitano.
Here.
Counsel Sani.
Here.
Counsel Simonelli.
Here.
Counsel DePiero.
Here.
10 members present, Mr. President.
Will the audience please join us in saluting the flag?
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, Counselor.
Mr. Chairman, if we could all stand for a moment of silence
Yep.
this evening in honor of Officer Thomas Goyech, who unfortunately has passed this past week.
I would ask that we could also add Councilor Simonelli's goddaughter, Elizabeth Bryant, to that moment of silence.
Also, former Officer Joseph Levita as well. Thank you. Just a quick announcement. Councilor McKinnon is unable to be here tonight. He's out of town. Item number 1, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 1 is a public hearing to all parties interested in the petition from National Grid and Verizon New England to install one jointly owned pole number 2109-84 on Bradford Street to guide existing pole 2109.
The petitioner, please come forward and explain the project and identify yourself. Microphone, sorry.
Yep, you're good. You can.
My address is 170 Medford Street in Malden, Mass. Again, I'm representing National Grid. And the petition that you have in front of you is to, I guess 371 Main Street is adding an addition, and there's a guy wire and an anchor in front. They're gonna add an entrance on the Bradford side. And they asked us to relocate the anchor and guy wire. So we will propose to install a pole approximately 45 feet towards Main Street, and the guy wire will go from the existing pole 2109 to the new pole 2109-84 to give them entrance to their building. If you have any questions or concerns, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions, councilors? Councilor Della Sola?
Just one question. The pole that you're taking the guide wire down, is that pole still gonna stay there?
Yes.
Or would that be taken?
No, it's going to stay there.
Just
We're
taking
not
the
gonna
guide
t-
wire
We're not
down.
going to touch that at all. We're not
Just-
going to touch that at all.
Just taking the guide wire down so they have access?
So
to
they have
their
access to their building.
building? And how long will it take for the new one?
I would think once we all approved, I was depending upon the business, so I'm not sure what their access, how they're going, I don't know. How fast they're going, I don't know.
And you know we have an issue here with how long to transfer the wires onto that pole.
Yeah, well, we're not transferring, we're just going to install a guy wire across, so it'll be
Oh,
a
that's
one-day
it.
job, yes.
Okay.
We're not adding any double poles or anything like that, we're
Okay.
just removing the anchor and putting the pole up.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, councilors? Councilor Matusky?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Jankowski, Verizon is a co-petitioner. Where are they tonight, do you know?
We are setting the pole.
You're with National Grid.
That's correct,
But
yes.
it says here Verizon.
Because we will set the pole. They are a jointly owned pole, so they will be on the pole,
You
but they
take
don't-
responsibility for Verizon.
that is correct.
Their track record isn't very good here. I don't know if you're aware of that. They don't show up for any public hearings. They're the cause of over 100 double polls and so forth. So if you're willing to take the responsibility for them, it's going to come back on you. I just want you to know that.
Mhm. Yep.
Because they haven't dealt with us fairly in the city. But I do want to thank National Grid for fixing over 70 lights on the Parkway, Mr. President. So at least we're getting some results from National Grid. Thank you.
Councilor Hanlon? Microphone, Councilor.
Verizon is the phone company, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, because usually you say the electric company and the phone company. I just want to make sure that
Yep.
that's what it is. On the guy pole and the support for the guy pole and the new pole and its support, are they in a direct line?
Yes, that's correct, yep.
The wire comes up, comes over in the
Yep,
direct line, so
yep.
it pulls
And-
evenly?
The only reason why we're doing that is because they asked us to relocate the anchor, because they're putting a new entrance on Bradford Street to get into their building.
Okay.
So that's all we've
My
done.
only question, thank you.
Counselor DeFlorio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I'm sorry if I didn't hear everything. Is this a double pole? Are you putting another, so it's just an,
No, we're just removing a guy wire and an anchor because they're adding an entrance to their building. So we have to remove the anchor and the guy and just putting another pole back there just to anchor that pole. Because if we move the anchor and guy, the pole's just gonna go that way, so we have to pull it
so you're
back.
gonna put another pole next to the existing pole,
Well, it'll be about 45 feet towards Main Street, yes.
but not right next to it? It won't be a double pole is
No.
what I'm asking?
No,
Okay.
not at all, no.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councilors? Would you like to excuse our guest? Motion made and seconded to excuse our guest. All those in favor? Motion made and seconded to open the public hearing. All those in favor? Opposed? Public hearing is now open. I'm going to ask the audience 3 times if anyone is in favor. Is there anybody in favor of this petition? Is there anybody in favor? Is there anybody in favor? I'm going to do the same if you are against it. Is there anybody in the audience against this petition? Anyone against the petition? Anybody against the petition? That portion of the hearing is now closed. Motion made. All those in favor of closing the public hearing? Opposed? Motion for favorable action is seconded. Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Counselor Capone. Yes. Counselor Della Sola.
Yes.
Counselor DeFlorio.
Yes,
Counselor Hanlon.
Yes,
Counselor Matusky.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Napolitano.
Yes.
Counselor Sani.
yes,
Counselor Simonelli.
Yes.
Counselor DePiero.
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
the petition has been granted. Motion made and seconded to open public participation. Is there a sheet, Counselor?
I don't have anybody on the sign-in sheet.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council about anything? Anything at all?
Hearing none, I make a motion to close public participation.
Motion made and seconded to close public participation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public participation is now closed.
Mr. Chair,
Aye.
can we
Mr.
take
Chairman,
item
I have-
number 5 off of the calendar, please?
Motion made and seconded to take item number 5. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 5, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 5 is communication from His Honor the Mayor. Hereby submit you for your approval an order appointing 12 listed special police officers to the Everett Auxiliary Police Department as special police officers for the city of Everett. These appointments shall be for an unpaid term of 1 year expiring March 23rd, 2018, in accordance with the City of Everett Administrative Code, Section 4, Executive Administration, subsection B, paragraph 8, Auxiliary Police. And the members are, right here. Patrolman Nicholas Deliadakis, Patrolman Arthur Champa Dindia, Patrolman Rashid Kaleem, Patrolman Mark Gayhart, Patrolman Ramon Uralis, Patrolman Guillermo Palencia, Patrolman Efrain Alicia Lopez, Patrolman Woodson Duperval, Patrolman Stephen Chaffee, Patrolman Charles Lukowski III, Patrolman Thomas Sheffro, Patrolman Joseph Harold.
Motion was made and seconded for favorable action. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Capone. Yes. Counselor Della Sola.
Yes.
Counselor DeFlorio.
Yes,
Counselor Hanlon.
yes,
Counselor Matusky.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Napolitano.
Yes.
Counselor Sani.
yes,
Counselor Simonelli.
Yes.
Counselor DePiero.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I'd just like to recognize the former councilman and chief of the Auxiliary Police Department, Chief Lenny LaRusso, Lenny Jordan, excuse me, and his lieutenant, Chris. The last name you're going to have to say. Here it is. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
All right, since I don't have my oath sheet with me, this is from memory. Please raise your right hand. After I do solemnly swear to faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as auxiliary police officer for the city of Everett, according to the best of my abilities and understanding, pursuant to the rules regulations, ordinances, and charter of the city of Everett. So help me God. I do solemnly swear to bear true faith and allegiance to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, support the laws and Constitution of the Commonwealth. So help me God. I do solemnly swear to bear true faith and allegiance to the United States of America and support the Constitution of the United States. So help me God. Congratulations.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Why don't you gentlemen come forward so we can take a picture for the newspapers? Mr. Mayor, would you like to join us in the council? Yeah. If anyone wants to come forward, get a closer picture, please do so.
Oh, they ain't gonna see me.
You always want to get close to me.
I don't know, it's from Chucky Leo. Huh? I don't know. No, I'll have them all for them and everything, all right? Yeah, yeah. All righty. Huh? What is it in? Yeah, I know.
Next item, Mr. Clerk?
Item number 2 is an order regarding a quitclaim covenants between the City of Everett and Massachusetts Electric Company for landowners private John T. Kieran's Playground at 45 Tufts Avenue.
What is your pleasure, councilors? Motion made and seconded for favorable action. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counsel Capone. Counsel Della Sola.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counsel Hanlon.
Yes.
Are we supposed to move in?
Counsel Matusky. Yes. Counsel McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counsel Napolitano.
Yes.
Counsel Sani. Counsel
Yes.
Simonelli.
Yes.
Counselor DePiero?
Yes.
Counselor Sani? 10 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
The order has passed.
Item number 3 is to accept a donation of $50,000 for $50 from Johnny Guerra to deposit it to the Fire Victims Fund for 5 victims in the city of Everett.
Favorable action, Mr.
And
Chairman,
letter-
to send a letter of thanks.
Second motion.
Motion made and seconded for favorable action and a letter of thanks to be sent.
Counselor Capone? Yes. Counselor Della Sola?
Yes.
Counselor DeFlorio?
Yes.
Counselor Hanlon? Counselor Matusky?
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes.
Counselor Napolitano?
Yes.
Counselor Sani?
Yes.
Counselor Manelli?
Yes.
Counselor DePiero?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
Order has passed. Item number 4, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 4 is an order to accept the donation of $5,000 from McDonald's to Brewster Company deposited into the Everett Police Department's donation account to be used towards the Junior Police Academy.
Favorable action,
Second,
Motion made and seconded for favorable action and a letter of thanks be sent. All those in favor, oh, roll call, I apologize.
Counselor Capone?
Yes.
Counselor Della Sola?
Yes.
Counselor DeFlorio?
Yes.
Counselor Hanlon?
Yes.
Counselor Matusky?
yes.
Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes.
Counselor Napolitano?
Yes.
Counselor Sani? Counselor Simonelli?
Yes.
Counselor DePiero?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
Order
Mr.
has
President,
passed.
could we please take items 6 through 14? I believe they're all appointees.
Yeah, before that, Counselor Simonelli?
Ask to suspend the rules and take items 20 and 23 collectively.
Second the motion.
Oh, 20? Well, one at a time, 20, they're two different.
What numbers are we doing now? 16 through 4.
Motion made and seconded to take items
20?
20 and 23 collectively. All those in favor?
We're taking them now?
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Mike? Item number 20 is an ordinance sponsored by Council Jonathan Hanlon as president. In accordance with the provisions of Section 12 of the zoning ordinances of the City of Everett, the City Council hereby adding new Section 32 by adding the following language, Section 32, inclusionary zoning.
Motion made and seconded to invite the mayor
Yeah.
and Mr. Souza before us. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. President. Carlo Di Maria, Mayor.
Tony Sousa, Director of Planning and Development.
So I know I hear there's some, maybe, some confusion maybe about the issue, or maybe it's not. Maybe, I know that not everybody's in favor of it. All I want to just say, and Tony will get into like the real nitty-gritty of it, that this inclusionary zoning, 70% of Everett residents today would qualify. 40% of those who own homes would qualify. This is not giving out, not that they're bad. This is not giving out Section 8 vouchers. This is not giving handouts to people. This is just be able to give housing to people who make pretty much what the money that we make. I think all of us actually would be able to be a participant in this program. This is to make sure that our friends aren't getting kicked out of the city as the values of property are going up, rents are going up. I mean, we all know, I think we're all struggling with rents and owning property. A 2-bedroom unit in Everett right now is $2,000 a month, and we know a lot of our friends and our children probably can't afford that. This is to, someone who's building 200-300 units of housing, that maybe 10% would build units that were affordable. When I mean affordable, it's not we're not telling them like give the units away for anything. They're still, and Tony maybe can get into the formula, but this is not a giveaway. This is just us being more responsible to encourage. I think we all are for affordable housing, right? I mean, everybody is for affordable housing. This is a tool, a mechanism to make sure that some of these big developers who are developing, and we can help them out too, so they can get extra units. So maybe we'll give them relief on parking, so they don't come to you and say, hey, I can't make any money doing this development. We will give them more density if they were, allowing something like this to happen. It's good for the city and it's good for the developer. Tony can get into the weeds with you on the legislation and ask him some of those questions. But I just wanted to just throw that out there. I know we've given you some information in the last meeting, I believe, and you have a handout here for you to give you some more information. I understand it is somewhat of a complex issue because what does that rent look like, Mayor? Right? That's like one of the questions that you may ask. What does that affordable rent look like? I still don't know what that number looks like, but it's not telling someone who has a two-bedroom that you have to rent it out for $1,000. Trust me, it's not. It's more like maybe giving them a slight discount, to a person. But Tony, do you want to?
Sure.
You're more well-versed than I am.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, just to echo as the mayor said, 70% of existing current renters would qualify.
Excuse me, Mr. D'Souza, is your microphone on? The slip
Is it better now? Sorry.
Thank you.
It's just my voice then. So just to echo what the mayor said, to think about 70% of existing renters here in the city of Everett would qualify under the state's requirements of affordable housing, if only they had the units available here in Everett. And likewise, again, as the mayor said, approximately 40% of existing homeowners too would qualify if only we had inclusionary zoning, a mechanism to promote affordable housing here in Everett. And again, absolutely, as the mayor was talking about with respect to the market rates in comparison to the affordable rates, and the mechanisms, as you know, as we've discussed, the mechanisms to try to promote affordable housing to help not only our residents, in the same token, give developers some mechanisms to, by mechanisms, as the mayor said, potentially looking at parking, density bonuses, and such, to help them make numbers work, again, without losing sight of the ultimate goal of getting to our 10%. We are not at 10% of affordable. We are at 6.5%. And to echo the serious need of this, in the last 2 years, unfortunately, we've lost about 280 units from our affordable housing inventory because of expiring terms. You see, so if I have a unit that's deemed affordable, depending on the, deemed affordable from a past project, a CDBG project, for example, or perhaps it was an older project through HUD back in the 70s or in the 80s, 30 years, 15 years, and so on, those terms expire. With this, and in this mechanism, one of the recommendations, as you know, as well, is to make these in perpetuity, meaning for life, because as we continue to build units, we have, as you know, 16,000 units, majority our market rate, of which a little over 1,000 is deemed affordable. Deemed affordable, again, what am I talking about? That's based on the state standard. As we continue to build, as we continue to grow as a city, the affordable is always a moving target, and we do have to make incremental progress. Through the mayor, forgive me, through the mayor and through the council, remember when we did the housing production plan 2 years ago? The reference to incremental progress is within that plan, so long as we're making approximately a 1% increase in the number of affordable. It helps the city with respect to a large-scale 40B development where we do run the risk of losing our own option of control in managing project. And likewise, reinforcing.
Tony, can you give them an example of what a salary would be for a family to be able to take part of this?
Sure. Great. That's a great point. With respect to, and I'm looking here at my cheat sheet here, but take a typical family of 4 here in Everett, family making under $73,000, $73,050 would potentially qualify under affordable housing.
So every teacher, every fireman, every police officer, and probably most department heads in this building would qualify for this program.
And to echo to that, Mr. Mayor, too, and as we've talked in the past as well, Everett households, the average here in the city of Everett is, in 2015, a little over 50,762. This is nothing new. I provided this handout, as you recall, in the beginning. So the numbers are indeed here. And to that end, too, in the inclusionary zoning ordinance, we did include local preference for city residents as well as city employees, as allowed.
So do you have, what is the market rate two-bedroom unit right now in Everett?
So according to the information that our consultant put together for a two-bedroom in Everett, it's about 2,100.
And what does lower that for the
The
rent?
affordable, we're looking at about 1,700.
So we're talking $300. By passing this tonight, you're giving a break on a two-bedroom, $300. So you're making a developer who's building 300 units of housing down on Route 16 or something, you're telling them that they have to pretty much give 10% of 200 units, which is 20 units, a $300 break. And we could probably work with them and give them a little more density and allow them to build some more units so they can make that up too. So it's, you know, for simple terms, that's exactly what this program is.
Councilman DePiero?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the information, Mayor and Mr. Souza. This is a complex issue, as we see. That's why it's a tough choice for some of us. I'm in favor of it as we move on to the next chapter in our city with the development and a lot of the stuff that's coming down the line and the big picture, the big vision. It's important to maintain who we are as a community and the people that built this community. We want to be able to afford to stay here. We don't want to continue to lose people because, as you all see every day, you can't touch property in Everett right now. It continues to rise, and the value is going to continue to rise long after this meeting.
Councilman,
And
excuse me, do you have a question?
I don't. I just wanted to speak that I'm in favor of it.
Okay. If you could save any comments toward the end, okay. Councilman DeFloro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Souza, we've already been through all this before, and we do understand it, and we definitely are here for the Everett people, obviously, okay? But there's a word there that says preferred Everett people. How do we control the contractor if he doesn't rent to an Everett person? Who's gonna control that? Is someone gonna be at City Hall going around to see who they're renting to?
Yeah, so if I may, that's a great question. With respect to that, in terms of there is a lottery is required. A lottery by a licensed DHCD state agency, an individual. And under the extent under the law, we can provide up to 70% under the local preference guide. That being said, now 5 years down the road, who's going to be following up with that? There is monitoring that is required to ensure that those units are affordable. The monitoring is done from my office and would be done from my office. As we do as we do now with our CDBG program, which is much smaller number of affordable units, but we do that monitoring, and it's actually a requirement through the state agency.
But the question I have is, if I'm an Everett resident and I'm making $70,000, a family of four, by the time I sell my house, it's not gonna be a family of four. My kids are all grown up. It's gonna be a family of two, okay? In other words, we're trying to help the Everett residents because the rents are too high. So right now, I own a house in Everett, I pay my taxes, I pay the mortgage, I still have 2 children at home. 5 years from now, my salary will go down and maybe I won't be able to afford my house anymore. And I decide that I want to go into a rental unit. At that point, I might not be able to go in this rental unit. I won't have a family of 4. So it has to be under 70,000, you're saying. Is that correct?
So a typical household size of a family of 4.
What is it for a family of 2?
Sure. And I can go down the chart here. For a family of 2 would be under 58,000, 58,450, which is still under the average income here in Everett.
Okay, and under $58,000, what would my rent be?
So if we're looking at an affordable, let's just say a 1-bedroom, 1,372.
And what would the average rent be on a person that's not in that range?
So you're thinking just typical market rate?
Market rate.
So, looking here about 1,800 plus.
So I would save approximately $500.
Yes.
Okay, but going back to that word preferred, if I'm a contractor and I have a lottery, I have one person from Everett and one person from wherever, another city. I decided to like the person from the other city better. You can't stop me. You can't tell me I have to put the Everett residents in. It's a lottery.
So under the local preference books, it is, you can provide local preference for up to 70% of local residents. That is the max that we can do. We can't just exclude simply outsiders, let's say. But we do have that local preference option that's guided not through the city of Everett, but by state law.
I firmly believe most people who are from Everett that want to stay in Everett like to stay in Everett. This is a tool for allowing them to stay in Everett rather than forcing them to leave Everett. Like a lot of our friends and our children have decided that Everett is too expensive to buy homes, and they've gone to Bill Ricker and wherever they've gone to, somewhere and not here because they can't afford to live here. This is a tool just to give someone, maybe you're right, maybe someone from Everett, someone not from Everett comes into the city and moves here. Well, they become an Everett resident, and that's great.
I have
And
no
they're hopefully,
problem for that, but
and
I
hopefully they're
wanna
going to
make sure
shop
that
in our
Everett
city
residents
and.
are not left out, and this doesn't guarantee that to me.
Well, nothing in life is guaranteed, but when it says 70% of, 70, what is it again, 70%?
Up to 70% under local
Right.
preference through state law.
We negotiated a host community agreement with Wynn that, the preference would be Everett people work in the facility. We
There's
can't,
nobody working there.
we
They don't
can't,
even call anybody.
we
This is why I don't
can't,
wanna
we
make the
can't
same
force
mistake
them. There's
again.
plenty of people from Everett working on that job site, plenty of contract union workers there, and I know them personally. I can name them off right now. I've gotten a lot of young boys and girls in that job. Don't make a comment like that. That's false. A lot of Everett guys are working on that job right now, and there's going to be more working. And that agreement was for the permanent jobs, not the construction jobs. But this is just a tool, Councilman DeFlorio, a tool to allow people, young people, older people, anyone to be able to afford to live in Everett. That's all it is. It's inclusionary zoning. It's not, opening the floodgates for something bad. This is actually something good.
I want to make affordable housing for everybody in this country.
But you hear a single bedroom right now is how much?
So for a one-bedroom market rate
Yeah.
is 1,800.
Yeah,
Where
we
are they getting these
we know
rates?
that one bedrooms right now in Everett on 1,800.
Where are they getting
So,
these rates?
and what's the new number going to be?
Under the affordable, and the rates come from DHCD, from the
Right.
state agency, under the affordable, it's 1,372.
If I'm a developer and I have a single bedroom apartment, I'm getting 1,300. I'd be happy.
But what I'm saying is that these rates are not coming from Everett. There's just no way. I mean, I know, my family owns property,
This is coming from DHCD.
and this is what we're collecting in Everett. A one-bedroom apartment, we're getting $1,300.
It depends. Yeah, I mean, are people getting 1,300 for a one-bedroom apartment? Yeah, at least that. Sure, especially if it's modern. If it's modernized and it's clean and it's a nice place. Yeah, absolutely. You have to. I mean, I've had I've been renting some properties these days, and when you put something on for like 1,800 for two bedroom, you can't imagine how many people call you for that.
Okay, the other question I have is,
Right.
we're not gonna get, the only thing we're giving the contractors is,
Relief?
extra parking, or maybe they can go higher on a building, or extra units.
No, we're not giving that. We're
We're
giving
not
them.
giving them any tax break,
We're
right?
giving them relief on parking.
Relief on
Rather than having 2 spaces per unit, we're saying you can have 1 space per unit. Because if you look at some recent reports, actually in the Globe, showing that most apartment buildings, 40-50% of the parking lot is empty. And we're making them build these, parking lots that are causing us all kinds of water flow issues with the stormwater, because there's nothing nothing collecting the water, and it's going into our sewer system where we should be saying, don't put any parking and allow, more of a permeable, was it non-permeable surface? Impervious service, right. So,
No, I agree with that. I don't believe that an apartment building should have 2 units anyways. I mean, I agree with less parking, that's not a problem, because I think a lot of the units, if you go around, a lot of the parking spaces are empty anyways. They're not using them.
right, so we would give them relief on parking if they, that's the things that we would do.
But do you believe that this may stop the growth for a contractor coming in?
No, nothing's going to stop the growth from contractors coming in. They're clawing at look at the, do you see what's happening in like the neighborhoods on just 2
I
families?
see what's happening now.
I mean,
Because it's not, we don't have the same effect. Okay?
Route 16, the different projects that are before this office now. I mean, the amount of people that want to build housing in the city, it's there's a lot of action.
So we have more land left for people to build big buildings over 20 units.
Well, I think
I feel this way, Mr. Mayor.
there's
and I
better-
definitely-
better
I feel
uses
that
for some
we're a little bit
properties.
too late on this. Okay, I feel that we've built a lot of buildings in the last 5 years, that this would have helped a lot of the Everett.
So you're against it because we're too late?
I think we're too late.
So that you're against it because we're too late?
That's not what I said.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but I think we're a little too late on it.
Well, we've been trying to push certain things like rezoning the Parkway for years, linkage fees for years. We keep getting denied. So I don't believe
I voted for it, and that was the reason why.
I don't believe we're too late. I think we're being
linkage
I think
fee
we're
would have helped
being
these people.
I think we're being proactive.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, please.
No, I don't agree with the comment that we're late. But if we're late, then great, then vote for it tonight. So at least we're getting it done now.
Councilman Hanlon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the page, Mass General Law, Chapter 40B of your pass out, it says requires every town to provide at least 10% of their year-round housing stock as affordable housing. What does year-round stock mean? What is that?
Year-round stock is 12 months of the year, not just seasonal housing. Seasonal housing, think of the Cape, for example.
You talk about anybody in the city?
12 months of the year, year-round housing.
All right. So he owns a house, and I own a house, and I want to sell my house, and he wants to sell his house. I say that I'm in the 70%. He says he's not. How do we qualify that?
Forgive me, I misunderstand.
I'm talking about the 70% of housing that has to have affordable housing. So we're selling our houses. He's selling his, and I'm selling mine. I want mine.
No, 70% of current renters would be qualify for this program.
Okay, no. But now the person that buys my house fixes it up and he wants to rent it. The person that buys his house wants to fix it up. Which one of us are in the 70% and which one of us?
It wouldn't even relate to a two-family house. This is 10 units or more. This is 10 units or more. So it wouldn't affect 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s.
Oh, but we both own apartment buildings. They're 10 units, okay? So,
New, this is also new, not
so
old.
it's not existing buildings then?
No, this is all new construction.
Okay, so the total year-round housing stock is.
That basically, what total year-round housing stock is, so take away, communities like Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, where people just go down seasonal.
But brand new buildings.
Right now, our total amount of housing in Everett is 1,600.
Okay.
We have 16 units in the city of Everett. So to meet the threshold of 40B, we'd have to have, I would say, 1,600 units? Is that, would be 10%?
You're looking at, see the target, so this is the challenge, right? The market rate, the number of units, it keeps on moving, but last time I looked at it, about an additional 400 units or so to get us to the 10%.
We would need 400 more units, yeah.
Approximately.
So by not having those 400 units, we could see a project come before us, a 40B housing project that we could not deny.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, and my other question was that you had indicated that, and we all would, I suppose, would like to get $1,700 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. So if we have all of these buildings that are being put up, how does the developer say, well, I can only have 70%?
No, just 10%.
10% has to be below the 1,700.
For one bedroom, 10% would have to be at $1,300.
Okay, how much?
$1,300. So it'd be like a $400 discount
Okay.
on that unit.
Okay. And then the other thing I had on this one page, it says allows the Chapter 40B development to override local zoning, Board of Health regulations in excess of Title V, historic district regulations, and subdivision regulations. That's a lot to allow people to go over just to build a building. You know, you said we want to put a lot of buildings in the city, but yet we're allowing a developer to come in. They don't have to follow these rules and regulations that all the other developers coming into the city of Everett have had to follow.
If I may.
Yeah.
Counselor, just to be clear, the part that you're referencing is accurate, but that pertains to a 40B developer that were to come in. Because we're not at our 10%, that developer, protected under state law, would be able to essentially surpass local control. and make a petition to the state and get constructive approval, because the city of Everett is not at its 10%, nor have we even made any incremental progress to get to our 10%.
You're saying because we're not at 10%?
No.
We are not at our 10%
And if
before.
we are,
We're at 6.5% now.
all right, but if we're
So
at-
someone has the right to come in to actually build a 40B,
do what they want to do.
yes.
So no matter,
But by passing inclusionary zoning, we actually get, we able to
Better managed.
bring our numbers up a little higher.
so the only way to bring our numbers up higher is with new development. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if there's
Yes.
no new development, we're gonna be at 6% forever.
Unless someone comes in with a 40B,
Right.
a housing project.
Okay. Okay for now.
Thank you.
Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to our guests. I think that the confusion is that I think everyone's making this more complicated than it needs to be. And I know that everyone's concerned about the rents and this, that, and the other thing, but at the end of the day, all we're doing is we're responding to a state requirement that you have to have 10%. That's 40B. Says you have to have 10% affordable units, and we don't. And this is something we've been talking about for years, trying to catch up and go. Is it late? Yeah, we've had some developments, but better late than never,
Right.
because as more units come in, we fall further and further below that 6. So the idea here is, and for the folks at home, we just want to be clear, and correct me if I'm wrong, want to be clear that this doesn't impact anyone who exists right now. This is only new development, so everyone who owns property right now, they don't have to freak out at home thinking that they're going to be monitored as far as rents and that nature. So this is new development going forward, and it's just to be in compliance with state law. And the reason why it's preferable to be in compliance is if we're not, exactly what you said, Mr. Mayor. Developer could come in here, push our zoning laws right out the window, do whatever they want to do as long as the state agrees, and we have a big problem. It might be a development that goes someplace where we don't want.
Right.
Now, as far as parcels of land, whether there's parcel of land to build on, it's not going to stop a developer from going and buying existing parcels, knocking houses down,
Assembling,
and putting a development up. It may not be the optimum location. So by having this in place, what we're doing is we're protecting our residents, we're protecting our city, and we're making sure that any developments that go forward have to abide by our rules, as opposed to forcing rules on us. So I know that everyone's getting caught up about rents, and as you said, Mr. Mayor, developers going to make money.
Right.
They're not going to come and build a building if they're not going to make money. So it's affordable housing, it's not a giveaway.
Right.
And some of the rates for the affordable housing are well over what I charge for my rent, so I got to look at that again.
Right.
But the reality is, this is actually a protective device for the city. It's something that's beneficial for the city. And what it does is it makes sure that our rules are followed, and the way that this community develops is something that we feel is beneficial. So if I said anything that's inaccurate, let me know, but
No.
I think it's a great thing to do. I know it's long overdue, but better late than never, so here we are, and go from there. So I'll be supporting it this evening. I do have some amendments to some of the items, and I could bounce them off you now while we're here, make sure I'm not going too far astray with them, but I don't know how far we are with this, Mr. Chairman. If it's something that's going to be voted on tonight, I can make amendments then.
I believe this is something we'll be voting on tonight. This has already been before the
Committee of the Whole. There was at Legislative
It was then referred
Affairs.
to Legislative Affairs,
Yeah.
so it's been in committee twice.
Okay.
It's been recommended with, you know,
Okay, then what I'll do is I'll very briefly touch on things that I would be asking for amendments and get your input. Let me know if you think that that would be something that would not be favorable or something that would be favorable. And what I did is I went with the January 23rd, 2017 handout that we got from you, Mr. Souza, that had some of the recommendations that you were looking at. And the first one I'm looking at is its paragraph number 2, applicability. When this was before the Committee of the Whole, I actually mentioned this one. It's Section 1, Subpart A, where it talks about a net increase of 6 or more units. What I wanted to do is add in after the or, it's 6 or anything that would establish a total of 8 units or more. So right now, as it stands, this would only impact new development that had 6 or more units, or an existing building that amended to have 6 more units. So you could take a 3-family, make it an 8-family by adding 5, it would escape. And what ends up happening is we got 5 more units on the market that everyone else now has to hold the bag for. So I want to make sure that anything that we do, anything that we change, whoever is going to be developing understands that they're all playing by the same rules. So the first thing I'd be looking to do is add that after increase of 6, or that would establish a total of 8 or more units. So anything that comes in its new development that's going to have 8 units or more, they have to abide by the rules.
Just for clarity, is it 8 or more new units?
Yes. Yes. So if you're amending a 3-family and you're going to make it an 8, you're adding 5 units, you get to 8, you have to have at least 1 unit in there that's going to be affordable housing. Then the other recommendations that you made were good. Another one they had a concern about was with the affordable housing fee. We don't have a trust, it's paragraph 4, subparagraph 6, but the main thing is under 7. And right now, we don't have an affordable housing trust as far as I know. And I think that just from my own personal point of view, and correct me if there's a different way to look at it, but I just think that we have a function as a city. We got enough on our plate without getting into the business of developing houses and things of that nature. If we keep the provision in, we're allowing a builder to come in, pay a fee, and just continue to do their things. The idea is the city will use that money to then go build down the road. We got enough going on. I don't think that we should be getting into that market. So I would be looking to remove that as an option. If you're gonna come in as a developer, these are the rules, you know what you're getting into, and go from there.
If I may.
Sure.
So just for clarity, for my own understanding as well. So essentially, one of the mechanisms that we included in here in the inclusionary zoning ordinance, one of the mechanisms was that a developer could, instead of creating the units, put some money aside to be agreed upon through the planning board and so on. There is generally speaking, there is a philosophy on that where it typically tends to be more advantageous to have the developer build the units because that's what they do indeed, as opposed to government. So it's certainly something worth considering. In the same token, not to muddle this, but removing of that, they still have the ability of the density bonus,
Yes.
which even beyond parking, again, they could, again, through local approval, through planning board and so on, if economics is, which it is about economics, they certainly could add, for example, another level, provided that they build a little bit more in units and so on to make a project work
Sure.
in their end, so.
So keeping the density bonus in there gives more flexibility.
Right.
So they really don't need to do the separate funds. I think it's a good point. I would ask that we hang on to that. Then in paragraph 4, subpart C, we've got 20% for development over 50, and everything under that is 10. I think there's a big window in between there that we need to grab. So what I would be recommending or proposing is that we do 15% for any development that creates 13 units but less than 50. And then once we get to 50 or more, 20%. Because it's a big gap in between under 50. You could have a 48 unit or 49 unit go in, and they just have to do 10%. So I want to make sure that we catch as many as we can. The goal being trying to get as close to that 10% or better as we can, just for long-term benefit.
And if I may.
Sure.
As well, and certainly thank you, Council, for revisiting this. The original recommendations we sent over to Planning Board included a threshold of 50 units or more to set aside 20%, which is consistent with what some of the communities have considered and have done. This adds also.
So we're all in favor?
Yes.
That's what we wanted.
Sure.
We wanted it originally, but the planning board actually cut us down.
Okay, good. And then obviously, there were a couple of paragraphs that you had requested be added in the preferential language for local residents, employees. And then the new section 8 that talks about configuration of affordable units. So those would be recommendations that I'd be proposing. Do you see any problems or concerns with any of those? Okay. Just want to make sure, we're all trying to make it better, and I want to make sure I'm not doing anything that's going to push it backwards. So, all right, thank you very much for your time. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. And we're all worried about Everett residents trying to get in. We're all here. Priority is Everett residents. If we come in tonight, I was really thinking about against this, but if we don't even give them a shot of coming in, if we don't pass this, there's no shot at all of an Everett resident be able to afford $2,100 for a two-bedroom. If we do pass this, $1,700 is still not cheap. It's more than my mortgage. So I like this idea, like a one-bedroom's $1,300, because my daughter was looking for a place, and she had to go look up in Danvers, because they have something like this up there to be able to afford it. That's just a comment. My other question was, who pays the difference on this? Let's say you're the builder, you own the units, and the person in unit 2 is paying $2,100. Unit 3 is paying $1,700.
Yeah.
So he's losing the $400 per month.
But he or she the developer's also allowed to we can give them a little more density, allow them to have more units, give them, so they don't have to create as much parking. So I mean, we'll work with developers. We always do, no matter who they are, because we want to see vacated or old properties or dirty industrial properties, cleaned up and generated into tax-producing properties. So, we've worked with developers from day one, and we'll continue. And anybody in the seat will continue to work with developer. These micro units that are being proposed down on Tremont Street, perfect. Small one-bedroom units. They're really not a burden on the school system. They're not a burden on the community. With our transportation plan, what's happening in Chelsea, right by some of our bigger housing developments now that are going on down off Route 16. You got a brand-new commuter rail stop going there. So a lot of bike paths are going to be connecting over to Assembly Row. So a lot of these developments that can happen, you're going to see them to be smaller in size. You're not going to see 3-bedroom units, 4-bedroom units. You may see a 1-bedroom with a den, so it could be a 2-bedroom. But they're small units that really, and mostly people don't want to even own a vehicle. They want to be able to just Uber to work or take public transportation, and so that's the type of that's who we're going after. We're very cognizant of the fact that we don't want any more cars in the city. We actually want to try to take vehicles off the road. That's one of the reasons why we did that rapid bus down Broadway, and hopefully continue that to Sullivan Station. Is to get try to be more progressive as a community, right? I want to make it easier for Shane. He had to go. I think he just graduated BC, but just recently. But if he's going to get another master's degree, to be able to not take his vehicle, but to get on a rapid bus line down Main Street. To get on get on the bike path and connect to Assembly Road T Station without taking it. I want everyone not to be able to take their vehicles anymore. To get so a lot of these developers that we're trying to bring into the city. We're telling them we'd like to see small units, ones, micro units, and they're listening to us, and they don't mind the inclusionary zoning as long as we give them the ability to maybe, build a few more units so they can, because in essence, to answer your question that I could have answered in 2 seconds, the developer eats the cost of the inclusionary zoning.
Of the difference of the rent.
So rather than $1,700 for a 1-bedroom, they're going to get $1,400, so they pay they're losing $3,600 a year in that unit.
I mean, it's still a high mortgage. It's still a high.
Oh yeah.
Rent. It's
Yeah.
not like you're going down from 2,100.
These guys aren't poor.
To 900.
Yeah, these developers, they're doing okay. Don't worry about the developers.
My other question was, I know we're talking about voting on this
some of
tonight.
them, right?
Councilor Capone was talking about, if you can correct me on that, if you have a 5-unit now and you go to 8, we just, a few minutes ago, if you want to clear the air on that one, I know we're voting on it, that's why I want to get everything.
Would you?
Yes, if Councilor Capone could explain that
Yeah,
again.
right now, the way it's set up, new development, if there's a net increase of 6 units. So if you have if you add 6 units somehow to an existing structure or to a brand-new structure, it would fall into this. What I'm looking to do is try to capture that, not only is it an increase of 6, but if whatever you add to an existing building makes it get to an 8, now you have to comply with this too. So if you had a 3 and you were adding 5 units to it to make it an 8, you need to comply with this, and at least one of your units would have to be affordable housing. It's to allow, the good news, this isn't hurting anybody right now who
Right.
exists. This is all about new construction.
Correct.
And we're trying to get to the 10% collectively as a community. And if we're gonna exempt out some people here and there, it's not fair. You gotta do it the same way for everybody. So if you're gonna get into the game and you're gonna put 5 units on a 3, I don't think you're hurting financially. You need to step up and you need to have 1 unit that's gonna be within the affordable housing.
I mean,
Yeah,
we love that idea.
I think it's great. Like I was saying earlier, if we don't do this, Everett residents don't have a shot of staying here.
Well, we have residency laws that we're making new policemen and firemen live in the city, and they probably can't afford to live in the city unless they work a million details. And firemen don't get as many details, they have to work a second job.
Correct.
Because, you're forcing them to live here, and then you're saying that you gotta turn around and pay $2,000 for a 2-bedroom
Correct.
on your, $56,000 a year salary.
All right, thank you.
Councilman McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the invited guest, good evening.
Good evening.
Just a few questions. One is, we all know that our department heads in police and fire on a regular basis are making more than $73,000. We all do the budget every year. That's a pretty safe statement to make, that $73,000
Not privates and, not police officers coming on and privates in the fire department not making
majority of
73,000.
them are making over $73,000.
Not a person getting.
Especially our police right now.
You're talking maybe sergeants and lieutenants and captains, or men and women who are working details around the clock, huh? But I'm just talking a 40-hour-a-week job. Person.
What's the base salary for a police officer at that?
A base salary for a new police officer coming on? It's not 70,000. I mean, I don't know, like, mid-50s for a police officer getting a job today. Firemen, probably the same. I mean, do anyone have a budget book on them or anything? Eric, do you have a, I mean, you want to wait? Fire is lower than police, right?
Excuse me, we're moving away from the topic. I mean, I think the mayor made the point
Well, he
about
made
the
some
salary amount,
comments.
whether it's police or fire. The bottom line is that people making $50,000 a year would have a difficult time living in the city of Everett without a
Right.
second income or
Absolutely.
a spouse.
Okay, I just want to clarify some of the statements that were made, Mr. Chairman, that's where I'm going with this. The rent analysis that was given tonight, I think, is really extremely high, and I know some developers in the city that have many units, and I know what they're getting for rents on a daily basis. I'm watching the numbers every day. These numbers are high, and I think we can safely say that
2 bedrooms in Everett right now are going for $2,000 a month.
I don't see it, and I know some developers. I know some developers that have just built recently over the last, say, 5 years, and they're not seeing those numbers, Mr. Mayor. To be truthful with you, they're not. So, maybe they're doing something wrong, but they're not seeing these numbers, and I can say that comfortably.
Maybe it's not a quality development then, but 2 bedrooms in Everett are going for $2,000 right now.
Okay, we can disagree all night long on the topic, but I just don't see it happening. To be truthful.
Go on Zillow. Yeah, pull it up on your iPhone. Go on Zillow and look at the rents that are in Everett right now.
Okay. And the point to Council Del Sola, there is no guarantee that one person from the city of Everett is going to actually get an affordable housing out of this program. There's no guarantee that Everett residents get Everett preference. We've seen that numerous times, as Council DeFlorio.
What do you mean numerous times? Give me a for instance where you say numerous times.
Yep. I think you can hang your hat on the fact that the jobs at the casino site were supposed to be Everett jobs for Everett people. We talked about that for a multitude of years. We're seeing very low numbers out of that site for Everett residents.
You're wrong. You're wrong again, Michael.
We're not. You're not. Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor.
you are.
We're not. And it's something that I've spoken about many times in these chambers.
Gentlemen, if we could, we're going off topic. If we could please stay on topic on the.
Topic is that you're not protecting the Everett residents through this program. I'm not sure how I'm voting on this tonight, but I can tell you that you're not protecting the residents of the city of Everett through this formula. 70% may qualify for them, but there's no guarantee that anybody in the city of Everett is going to get it. It's a lottery. Anybody can move in tomorrow, enter the lottery, and have the same fair share of being able to be picked. There's no guarantees that Everett residents are going to be protected through this ordinance.
Well, you made a claim again that we're not protecting Everett residents.
No,
This-
not
this-
that you're not protecting.
This is
I
exactly,
said that this
this is
ordinance-
exactly why we're doing this, is to protect Everett residents. So if units came up that were affordable units and 100 people to enter into a lottery, we're hoping that a majority of them are Everett people. Could someone not from Everett enter that lottery and be awarded a seat, a unit? Yes, probably, but there will be eventually also be people from Everett being awarded units too. So, and what's the problem with people wanting to come and to live in Everett anyways? So if you get
There's nothing wrong with that, Mr. Mayor, but we want to protect the long-standing residents that live in the city of Everett.
And that's why we're doing
That's
this.
what we're trying to keep it. My last point to this is, and I agree that it's not because of you guys, but this is really late to the game to put this ordinance in place. I don't think you're going to see any large development in the city of Everett. I can't think of one piece of land in the city of Everett right now that could potentially become a large development in the city of Everett.
All right.
You'd have to take a group of
Market
homes,
Forge?
you'd have to take a
GE
large.
Parkland?
GE
Market
Parkland
Forge, GE Parkland,
is
Lower
sold.
Broadway?
GE Parkland is sold.
GE Parkland is sold?
It is,
It's sold? Michael, you don't, Council, you don't have,
Again,
there are 6 parcels. There are 6 parcels that are going to be redeveloped down there. They're not sold.
There's
There's
other-
one owner, they're not sold. Market Forge, they have,
I believe.
there's
and
another
I'm not gonna
development.
get-
And you have all of Route 16. There are plenty of sites.
I
And if we had passed the overlay district that I put forward, it wasn't you, it was the Board of Aldermen last year, we wouldn't have a self-storage building going down on Winter Street and Buell Street either. So, we're not late to the table. We came with inclusionary zoning last year. We've been waiting now about a year now.
Okay, I will comfortably be voting no tonight, thank you.
Good.
Councilman Sarni.
Thank you. In this exclusive zoning, they talk about 10 or more units, and I heard 8. Where is 8 coming from when we have 10 or more dwelling in here? I'm just concerned. Oh, from you, okay, all right. Is that something, so you're gonna amend it, we haven't happened yet, okay. The other question I have is.
But I think it's great. I think that's a great idea. Because someone who is converting a 3-unit to 8 units is going to make a good amount of money.
Right, especially because what they paid for the house is probably
Right.
years ago. My concern is also, can someone at $30,000, because I believe the average person around here makes about $35,000,
Right,
and they don't make 50, 60,000.
correct.
The seniors especially, because their income was different back then when their retirement. Can someone at 35,000 be able to go into these homes and pay less than 1,300? Because 1,300 is really tough for someone even at $55,000. Because you have other expenses. You
Yeah.
know,
Sure. They can. This, the affordable rate itself is set at 80%, not to confuse, but it's set at 80% of what the median is. And in the statute, and what the state allows is could be 80, 50, and 30%. So those making, again, less than, and I'm using that example, typical family of 4, under 73,000 could qualify.
So when you talk about a lottery, how does that lottery work? Is it works by people put in and they draw a name out of a hat? Or is it going by what their income is? Is it?
Sure. So in order to be eligible for the lottery, one does have to qualify by income. There would be an application process that would have to be verified. The verification would be done by a licensed lottery expert. That is someone that is trained by the state agency, DHCD on Housing, to conduct the lottery itself. And again, to echo and to complement all of the concern and thought on local preference, we are doing what we can do, the maximum we can do under state law to have that local preference. Certainly, if there was an ability or mechanism to do more, we would certainly look at that. And to another point, there is no shot today for affordable, unfortunately. And so at least the inclusionary zoning gives someone a chance, an Everett resident, and certainly others as well. But to answer your, again, just get straight to the point with your question, indeed, those families making less than the 73 or the 73,000 would be eligible under the inclusionary zoning ordinance.
The other question is, can we change that word preferred to mandatory Everett residents? Is that something we can change?
I'd love to. I don't think it's legal, though.
It is not allowed.
It's not allowed?
No.
Okay.
No, and again, we've taken that verbatim from what state law would allow us to the maximum extent possible.
Okay, thank you.
We had a couple questions. You mentioned that roughly 6.5% of Everett's current housing stock is affordable or low rate, or subsidized rate housing. And that over 50% of the residents currently would qualify for those reduced rates. And I know you mentioned incremental change and the fact that we're asking 10% of anything new being developed to meet these criteria. It seems like it might take a while for the housing stock to hit 10% affordable, and even at that point, it still might be just a drop in the bucket. So I guess my question was that the 10%, is that a arbitrary number? Did it come out of thin air? Did the state mandate that? Where did that come from?
Sure. So when we looked at that, we looked at not only in nearby and adjacent communities, but also across the state and other gateway communities as well. Originally, in the original ordinance as proposed through the mayor, we were very careful in crafting this. 10% is very common. 15%, 15 is not uncommon. Most recently in Chelsea, they explored it and they've worked on having it at a 15% threshold. And 20% is something that other communities, including Somerville and development, hasn't stopped there.
Yeah.
They've incorporated in there. So it didn't come out of the sky. We did look at it closely in adjacent communities and, again, other gateway cities of similar size and scope.
Great. And then I guess the second part was just that. Could you elaborate a bit more on some of the other adjacent local communities, Chelsea, Malden,
Sure.
Revere, and what they include?
Sure. So with respect to City Malden, they have not adopted inclusionary zoning yet. Chelsea just recently amended theirs. Somerville, Cambridge, Woburn, Melrose, Quincy, Fall River. There are many communities that have inclusionary zoning or some mechanism, whether they call it inclusionary zoning, affordable housing, workforce housing, comes under many different titles. But it's not out of the norm, and it is, and again, why is it being done? Because of the state mandate, and we need to be making progress towards that.
Right. And they all use that 10% threshold?
No, there's variations. Some are higher.
Okay.
Some are higher. And others will do it by district as well. So there's different variations.
Great. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Matusky?
Thank you, Mr. President. Excuse me. Mr. Sousa, you mentioned that we lost in the last few years 260 units. Where did we lose those?
Sure. So those units were included as part of a program through CDBG, and they were certified. They were under a 15-year term, and they were placed in 2001. And we lost, we had a large batch of units that were added, and we lost, I want to say it's about 260 or 280, completely gone.
In other words, they got some kind of subsidy from the state or federal government, and they were required to put lower rent people in.
Well, yeah, it's specifically to those. They were under a similar to today, but not quite exact, CDBG, Community Development Block Grant
Is
Program.
there anything coming up that we're going to lose a big building or anything like that in the near future?
So scheduled on our list of the subsidized housing inventory, there's a large number over on School Street, the Sacra Plaza. And that was through a program funded through Mass Housing. And it escapes me now when that started, perhaps 20 or 30 years or so ago. That would also potentially could be lost if the owner elects to go full market rate.
Okay. So that's I think there's like 200 units there. I mean, I don't even know.
It sounds about right.
So we could potentially lose a lot more units in the near future.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so that's going to really hurt our housing stock in this community. And, you know, as a former member of the Housing Board, I was surprised to read that only 256 Section 8 certificates are given to out of 16,000. Does that include? Is that all?
But people bring them from other cities into our community.
Traveling.
Yes, so we may have more than.
Okay, because I seem to run into a lot of people who get
Right.
Section 8 certificate.
Well, because rents historically in Everett were always very low.
Right, more reasonable. Okay.
So we had,
That
you know,
answers that.
right.
And, you know, having been a part of the city for many years, and a former member of the Housing Board, which you appointed me to, I learned a lot over the last, the 3 years I was on that board. And I gotta say, out of all the calls that I get from people that live in this city, or even outside of this city, they're looking for senior citizens housing.
Right.
They're looking for veterans preference housing.
Right.
And, I can't believe rents have skyrocketed so much. My mother was telling me the other day, they paying that much? I said, yes, they are, Ma. And they, these are newer buildings, I would imagine, but, I had quite a bit of property years ago, and, geez, I can remember charging $250, $300 a month, and I couldn't even get that. It was really difficult. Then the water bills went to the roof. I don't know where this $2,000 a month thing.
You have a lot of big developers making a lot of money in the city of Everett.
Okay, so, yeah, well,
So this is a tool for them to give a little back to our community. I was unable to pass a linkage fee, finally getting to the point that we can get a linkage fee in. And that money is going to go also to affordable housing. And you're right, the biggest complaint I get from senior citizens is not enough senior housing or affordable housing for them. And that is something we're looking at right now at St. Teresa's with the Archdiocese.
Oh, so you are
Oh, yeah, I
possible.
mean, we know that housing is, we have a crisis. We need housing for people in our community.
Right.
And we need housing that they can afford. You want a community where your values go up, right? Everybody wants a nice, strong community where values go up.
Right.
But what happens when you do that? You lose our friends. You lose people who live in the city for a long time. You lose your employees. You lose the young, Councilman De La Sola talked about his daughter. You lose people with vitality, leaving your community because they can't afford to live in your community. So now you actually create more of a transient community because all the people that are born and raised in Everett can't stay here anymore. This is a small attempt to try to keep some people here locally. We're going to make greater attempts. Yes, would I love to see that number, that 10%, that number to go higher? More units, more percentage of units. I was afraid to do that. I didn't want you all to be disappointed, so we went with the minimum. But we can always amend that if you would like to sometime down the line. Trust me, Andy Montelli, the Backyard, he's doing another development on Route 16. It's not because he lost money in Everett. I don't know who else. There's other housing developers that are building in Everett because they know what the market is right now. It's a good market right now.
Well, and the other thing that I think that you talked about micro units or studio apartments. There are a lot of single people.
Yeah.
They fall into the senior citizen category. They
Yeah.
fall into every category, veterans, disabled. They're not looking for a two-bedroom,
No.
okay? I'm getting calls for one person. They prefer a studio,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Something small and affordable. Two bedrooms is where, well, I know how it goes. The people, they'll share an apartment, and you hear a lot of that today. The people sharing units. You never heard of that years ago. And, you had a meeting the other day on Everett Square about
Please stick to
development.
just this piece, Counselor, please.
Okay, well, what I was referring to is this is going to, in fact, include Everett Square.
Yeah.
They're going to be developing.
There's going to be development in Everett Square. We have people come in the office already looking to develop both sides of Broadway on the old Bay Bank building, was it? The corner of Chelsea and Broadway, and someone looking to come on the other side where...
Well, that's fine, but my question is parking. Parking is always, an issue. If you lower it from 2 to 1, and I know a lot of people are taking public transportation today. We're very close to Wellington, we're close to Sullivan, and I just hope it works that way. I don't know how many people are going to be driving bikes, but I suppose that comes into play too, but, I'm...
You build the infrastructure for them, they'll use it.
But
You build the
Everett
bike
Square,
paths.
for instance, with new development, Mr. President, I don't want to see the neighborhood surrounding that area inundated with parking situations. Because parking isn't, we all know this. Every street, the village is loaded with cars, the line, I think every neighborhood is pretty maxed out on parking, but...
Because, can I tell you why? You said it perfectly. You said that people are sharing rooms because the units are too big. Well, these 2s and 3s that have 5 or 6 rooms, they're not just one family living in them. there's 2, 3 families living in them. So if you have smaller units, if you allow people to take their 2-family or 3-family and convert them into 5 or 6 units, what are they gonna do? They're gonna make them all 1-bedrooms maybe? So what happens? You lower the density in the units. So you don't make them put parking, when you make them put 2 parking spaces in per unit, you know what they do? They rip out their backyard, and they put hot top down, and they put parking lots. Now, what happens, why do we have so many issues with water in Spring Street, the culverts, overflowing and not being able to hold all the water? Because it's not going into the earth anymore. It's going into our sewer systems because we're making them put 2 parking spaces per unit. So let's allow them, to convert their 2s into 4s. Make them small, make them 1-bedroom units. Because what's going to happen is, are you losing families? Yeah, you're not really losing families, because what you're really losing is 5 or 6 guys or gals or whatever all living in 1 unit. Why do we have 8,000 kids going to school in Everett?
Well, I want to thank you for appearing here this evening to fill me in on this. I know other cities around here, you mentioned several of them. And, I did read some articles in the Globe and I think the Herald too. But this is what, if you can't put up more elderly buildings, building them, this is the second best thing. I mean, technically. But like I said, I'd like to see more smaller units in some of these developments where people can actually afford them.
Yeah.
Studio apartments are in high demand now, and people want a little bit of.
What Sal Sacro did down at Broadway, Broadway, that small little 1-bedroom units there in the back there.
Glendale Court.
Beautiful. That's a great development.
That's his favorite development, by the way.
That's for a senior, for a little kitchen, a little living area, and a bedroom.
And it's a nice piece of property.
It's a nice development.
Well, he's really the only developer, other than some new ones that we've seen over the years. He's the only one that put up a high-rise.
Yep.
Mr. Sacro. So, got to give him credit for sticking it out all these years. But I want to thank you for appearing this evening, Mr. Sousa and Mayor DiMaria. I'm pretty well sure that my questions have been answered. I want to thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome, Counselor. Do you have a question, Counselor Napolitano? There's a few more questions if you don't mind holding off. Counselor McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Mr. Sousa. Mr. Sousa, until we fulfill our affordable housing requirement, there is nothing that stops the proposed 40B unit development from coming into the city, correct?
Correct.
Correct. And caveat to that, the inclusionary zoning ordinance is a recommendation out of the housing production plan, as I said in the beginning. So long as we're making incremental progress on that, getting towards the 10%, it does help the city from stopping an unfriendly 40B. But without this mechanism in place, then we don't have anything else we could.
But we can't
that
stop
could
a
support
40B
us.
from, we can't stop a 40B from coming, we can't stop many 40Bs from coming into the city. So, it's kind of, okay. I'm not really sure. I think Lincoln Street was a great thing. I voted on it when I was a common councilor back in 2012. Lincoln Street was a great way to go with developers to give back to our community. We want to see them all give back to our community. This, I don't think, meets that standard. I don't think this does what we intended on doing back then. I think this is totally different than linkage fee. I wish that we had seen linkage fee before us tonight and not this, but this is what we're facing with. But I appreciate you.
Linkage fee has actually passed through here. It's actually just got voted on in the State House, right?
Yes.
We actually, you already voted on linkage fee.
When, Ms. Beck?
Last session.
Last session, I believe, last year.
Okay, I'll go back to my notes on that. Thank you.
Counselor Napolitano?
Thank you. Thank you for appearing, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And Mr. Sousa. I followed through every step of this, both at the Committee of the Whole and at the Legislative Affairs Committee. I mean, first of all, I commend you for protecting us in the side of a 40B. We really don't have a lot of control in that situation, correct?
Right. Correct.
Okay. And the thing is that you mentioned a few places that are, developments that are going on right now. But realistically, that's only the ones you're aware of, right?
Right.
I mean, if you look at some of the developments that have occurred on the city of Everett over the past 60 years, Sacro Plaza was housing and a building that burned down. Park Plaza was a series of buildings that were not used, a VFW hall and a parish hall. I remember when Glendale Towers was built, there were houses down there. okay? The thing is that a developer coming in is not necessarily looking at just vacant land. They're looking at parcels of land where they can purchase the housing, be able to develop a high-rise, and still make a profit,
Right.
even at the expense of buying maybe 4 or 5 2- or 3-family home lots. I mean, is that correct?
Yeah, the old saying is the best development, redevelopment for parcel of land is not the one that has a for sale sign on. It's the one that the developer goes and makes a deal with, for instance, the Lewis property down on the corner of Spring Street and the Parkway, assembling up, it was one house for sale, and then that guy assembled 3 other properties. That's what they do. They assemble properties, and they make deals with people that are living in properties that didn't even know they were gonna sell their house.
Yeah, I mean, most of the apartment buildings on Chelsea Street were originally single and 2-family homes that were opened up further down, closer to Chelsea, and developed. So I think that, you know, the image of what we see Everett today, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we want to keep the best, which is the sense of community that we have. But on the same token, our houses are not going to stay up forever. There are going to be properties that are going to be torn down and redeveloped. Property down the line, which is now being used for parking lot for the construction
Staging,
crews.
yeah.
You know, there were 2 3-family homes there. Now, granted, they went down by fire, but they probably would have gone down anyway, because as the development's going on down there, those type of properties are not going to be feasible in that area. So I think that, you know, we need to have a little more vision as a council, and I think most of us do, that we see that what we're talking about today may not directly affect what's going on today. We need to be looking ahead. I mean, would you agree?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. I think this is a step in the right direction. I haven't read anything. I think Council Capone's amendments just go towards strengthening it.
Absolutely.
And I will be supporting this.
Thank you.
Counselor DeFlorio.
I don't have any further questions. I just would like, I don't know if anybody else has any questions. There's been a lot of amendments. This has been going back and forth. I would like a clear ordinance in front of me before I make my decision. Thank you.
So is there a motion to put that amendment forward? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Motion made and
Thank you very
seconded
much.
to excuse for the customary thanks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, what I've done is I've got the original ordinance from 2016, and I've got the recommendations that's dated January 23, 2017. That's the version I was working off of. So if everyone has the old version, I could just run through those. And so I don't know how you want me to proceed. So what I made amendments to, the proposals that I'm going to make, were off of the original document. So it's not anything that's been changed up and down. So I could go right to the original and just use the recommendations that were made by the planning department and my additional recommendations. So so I could start with that on page 1. It's paragraph 2, subpart 1, subpart A. The second line says aggregate in a net increase of 6 or more dwelling units. The First Amendment, I would say, is 6 or, after the or and in between the more, or that would establish a total of 8 or more dwelling units. Then, next amendment was, it's number 1, number 2 actually, of the Planning Board and Board of Appeals breakdown. It's listed as number 2 on that January 23rd, 2017 form. They're both recommending that parts B and C of section 2 be stricken, and I agree with that. So that's the second part of the amendment. Then under section 4.1, it's A subpart 3, payment of an affordable housing fee under section 7, looking to strike that completely. And then in the subparagraph B below that, the third line down, it says paragraph 3. Since we're striking that, we need to amend that to paragraph 2. Then subpart C and 4, it says in the following districts, the affordable housing requirement shall be, and it starts off at 20. What I want to do is insert in there 15% for any development resulting in the creation of more than 13 but less than 50 dwelling units, residential lots, or assisting living units, and then continue on with 20% for any development that results in the creation of 50 or more dwelling units. Number 4 on the recommendation from the planning department was to retain the density bonus. I think that that's a good thing to do. Then number 5, it looks like they talked about this too, section 7, removing that, because that would require us to establish a trust fund so that if a developer came in and wanted to bypass the zoning ordinance, they'd have to give us funds. And then we'd have to set the funds up in a trust, and it creates a whole other animal that we don't want to get into. So I would be recommending we remove section 7. Then the planning department, number 6 on their form, they're looking to retain, in section 9, retain preservation of the affordability in perpetuity versus the 50 years. And I think that's a good thing to retain, because that way we're going to ensure that these units stick around. It's not a short-term fix, and then they come back on the market. And on the flip side of their January 23rd, 17, they have 2 more issues they wanted to lead in here. One was the language dealing with local preference, and then the other one was the configuration of affordable units. I think we should retain those. So the existing ordinance that was presented to us with those amendments is the way that I would be proposing the zoning ordinance to the council. And the one thing I want to say, we bounced around the idea of affordable units and rent and helping out the tenants and this, that, and the other thing, but we're losing sight of what inclusionary zoning is all about. And what it's all about is either you're protected or you're not. Without it, you have no protection. A 40B developer can come in and push the city around, put a development wherever they want, whether it's vacant land or whether they buy parcels and put it up somewhere where we prefer it's not located. By putting the inclusionary zoning ordinance in place, you are protecting the city and you're protecting the community to make sure that these developments don't come in and just eat the city up and we get pushed to the side. And until we get to the 10%, technically, we're not in a position where we can absolutely deny without, any kind of recourse. However, having a strong inclusionary zoning ordinance like this and updating those with the incremental increases between 15%, 20%, what that's going to do is it's showing good faith on the part of this community that we're trying to get to the 10%, and I think that in and of itself would be enough to protect us. So those are the recommendations that I would make.
Motion made and seconded with those amendments that the counselor spilled out. It's a little too much for me to repeat. Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk. Okay, all those in favor of the amendments?
Aye.
Opposed? Amendments have been added.
Favorable action as amended?
Motion made and seconded for favorable action as amended.
Counselor Capone.
Yes.
Counselor Della Sola.
Yes.
Counselor DeFlorio.
No.
Counselor DePiero.
Yes.
This is the old one, so I'm gonna have to take you way out of order. Counselor Sani.
Yes.
Counselor Matusky.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
No.
Counselor Napolitano.
Yes.
Counselor Simonelli.
Yes.
Counselor Hanlon.
Yes.
How did you get you, DePiero, huh? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 yeas, 2 nays, Mr. President.
The ordinance has passed. Is there a motion for reconsideration?
Motion for reconsideration?
Second.
Motion made and seconded for reconsideration.
Counselor Capone.
No.
Counselor Della Sola.
No.
Counselor DeFlorio. Counselor DePiero.
No.
Counselor Sani.
No.
Counselor Matusky.
No.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Napolitano.
No.
Counselor Simonelli.
No.
Counselor Hanlon. 3 yeas, 7 nays, Mr. President.
Reconsideration has failed. Council
President?
Capone?
Suspend the rules and take items 6 through 14 collectively?
Please.
Is there a second? Motion made and seconded to take items 6 through what, Counselor?
14.
Through 14 collectively. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.
Item number 6 is the appointment of Joseph Gass as a sworn waiver for a term of 1 year. Number 7 is Mary Pulliot to the Historical Commission for 1 year. Daniel Skerritt is number 8 to the Historical Commission for 1 year. Number 9, Rosemary Caddison to the Historical Commission for 1 year. Number 10 is Harriet Tamaro to the Council of Aging for a term of 1 year. Number 11 is Kim Ferranti to the Board of Health for a term of 1 year. Number 12 is David O'Brien to the City Public Works Commission for a term of 1 year. Number 13 is Leo Pisano to the Planning Board for a term of 3 years. I'm sorry, and David O'Brien was a term of 3 years. And 14, Frederick Cavasso to the Planning Board for a term of 3 years.
Favorable action on all the orders.
Second.
Mr. President, suspend Rule 20 in favorable action.
Motion made and seconded to suspend Rule 20 in favorable action.
Counselor Capone.
Yes.
Counselor Delasola.
Yes.
Counselor DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counselor Hanlon. Counselor Matusky.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Napolitano.
Yes.
Counselor Sani.
Yes.
Counselor Simonelli.
Yes.
Counselor DePiero.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
They have
President,
passed.
could we please suspend the rules and take item number 23?
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to suspend the rules and take item number 23. All those in favor? Opposed? Mr. Clerk?
Item number 23 is an order sponsored by Counselor Anthony DePiero as president, that the City Council of the City of Everett, acting pursuant to the authority granted under Chapter 79, Section 14, of Chapter 45 of the General Laws, Section 14 of Chapter 40 of the General Laws, and every other power and authority which is hereunto in any way enabling, to take on behalf of the city by purchase, gift, and/or eminent domain, the fee to and a permanent easement in portions of the property located at 162 Santilli Highway for the public purpose of using it for Sacramone Park, with a recommendation for favorable action pending the City Council going into executive session to discuss negotiating costs for the land and easement, with an invitation to attend the session extended to Director of Planning Tony Souza, Mayor's Chief of Staff Kevin O'Donnell, City Solicitor Colleen Mejia, City Auditor Eric Demus, and Special Counsel Lee Smith.
Move to accept the committee's report.
Second,
Motion made and seconded to accept the committee report.
and make a motion to move into
All those in
executive
favor?
session.
All aye.
Opposed? The committee report has been accepted. What was that motion, Counselor?
Favorable action.
This would be the, correct, this to move into executive session, is that correct? Is that the motion that we need to make?
Why, it's already been.
For the purpose of...
For the purpose to discuss the cost and,
Yeah, because we can't discuss any of this on the floor, so before we start discussing, the
Okay.
motion would be to move into executive session and invite the guests that are on this list.
Is there a second on the motion?
And that we reconvene after.
Motion made and seconded to move into executive session, as we can also discuss this on the floor
For the purpose of...
for the purpose of the land sale, to invite Mr. Souza, Mr. O'Donnell, our city solicitor, our city auditor, and our special council member, and we will resume after executive session. Is that a roll?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We will now go into executive session.
You weren't invited. You didn't get an invitation.
Which ones have we taken, which ones have we taken altogether? Which ones are we away?
Oh, we took all the committees, 6 through 14.
6 through 14?
This meeting will now reconvene. The minutes of the executive session will be sealed until the negotiations are through with and it's deemed that it's allowable. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I'd like to lay this item on the table to our next council meeting.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to lay the item on the table until our next council meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The item has been tabled. I believe we're on number 15, Mr. Clerk.
Items number 15, 16, and 17 are all renewals if someone would like to.
Papers are on.
All the papers in order, Mr. Clerk?
Yes.
Motion
Favorable
made.
action on 15, 16, and 17.
Second motion.
Motion made and seconded. Take items 15, 16, and 17 collectively. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Motion favorable action. Counsel Capone.
Oh, you're going to read the items.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Petition for a second-class motor vehicle license from European Motor Sales, 511 Second. Application for this selling flowering plants at Broadway Dairy Maid from 4/15 to 4/16. And a petition for a junk dealer collector's license, American Scrap Meadow, 357 3rd Street. All paperwork is in order.
Favorable action on these.
Second motion.
Motion made and seconded. Favorable action on the petitions. All those in favor? Well, roll call.
Counsel Capone.
Yes.
Counsel Della Sola.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counsel Hanlon.
Yes.
Counsel Matusky.
Yes.
Counsel McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counsel Napolitano.
Yes.
Counsel Sani.
Yes.
Counsel Simonelli.
Yes.
Counsel DePiero.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
The petitions have been granted. Next item.
Item number 18 is ordinance sponsored by Counsel John Hanlon when he was president. Regulating license to serve taxi cabs with a recommendation to refer to the city clerk.
Accept the committee report, place on file.
Motion made and seconded to accept the committee report and place on file. All those in favor?
Refer to the city clerk.
Is there a second? Motion made and seconded? Yes, Counselor.
Yeah, there are some amendments that the committee wants. No.
No, just to refer it to the city clerk. Motion made and seconded to refer the ordinance to the city clerk's office. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Item number 19, ordinance sponsored by Counsel John Hanlon establishing a livery license in the city of Everett. The recommendation refer to the city clerk.
Accept the committee report and place on file.
Motion made and seconded to accept the
And refer
committee
to the city
report,
clerk.
place on file, and refer to the city clerk. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.
Item number 21 is ordinance sponsored by Counsel Anthony DePiero to add a new section 12-54.
Item number 20, Mr. Clerk.
Did we just vote on inclusionary
Oh,
zoning?
I apologize.
Oh.
I just looked at the number, that was it. Don't want to do that again.
Oh, God, no. Item number 20, ordinance sponsored by Counsel Anthony DePiero to add a new section 12-54. The fee for each license granted for lodging houses in the city of Everett should be $30 for the first 8 rooms and $30 for every room there after per annum.
Accept the committee report, place on file.
Motion made and seconded to accept the committee report and place on file. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion made and seconded for favorable action on the ordinance. Do you have a question, Counselor?
Yes, I noticed that, where's that sheet? A certain building that's on here is a legitimate hotel, or will be this year. I mean, this isn't a lot of money to be paying it to begin with, but, you know, does this exclude hotels? It's just lodging?
No, lodging house means hotel as well.
Oh, does it?
It includes
So-
motels, hotels, beds and breakfasts, and lodging homes.
All right, so the reason why the one on the Parkway is not on here, because it's not open yet, is that it?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Counsel Capone. Yes. Counsel Del Sola.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counsel Hanlon. Counsel Matusky.
Yes.
Counsel McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counsel Napolitano.
Yes.
Counsel Sani.
Yes.
Counsel Simonelli.
Yes.
Counsel DePiero.
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
you have passed.
Item number 22 is Committee on the Whole Report and Communication with Director of Community Manager Tony Souza with an update on the progress of redesign of Everett Square with a recommendation to place on file.
Accept the committee report, place on file.
Motion made and seconded to accept the committee report and place on file. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.
Item number 24 is the Committee on Public Utilities report on communication to allow Mobility LLC to make a presentation. If I have that committee report, it just happened. Maybe someone who's on that committee can. Oh, here it is.
He has it.
No, I don't.
Counselor Delasola, if you're on the committee,
That's all? Okay, thank you.
motion
The
made and seconded.
recommendation to place on file.
Motion made and seconded to place on file. Accept the report and place on file. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.
Item number 25, resolution sponsored by Council Simonelli to request DPW Director appear second meeting in March to update on possibility of tightening up manhole covers on Ferry Street. And we have a communication from,
Yeah, we were just asked that you read the communication from Mr. Millie.
yes. All manholes between Union Street and Chelsea and Ferry Street were inspected by our highway department and are in good condition. We added mufflers, heavy rubber stripping to each one to ensure that the covers are tight and properly aligned. Manhole near the fire station on Ferry Street is also intact, and a muffler was added here as well. There was a further one today that mentioned a manhole cover there where water was seeping or something, and that is being fixed as well. They just noticed that.
We'd like to thank the DPW Director and refer back to sponsor.
Motion made and seconded to refer this item back to sponsor. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.
Which one are we on now, buddy?
26, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 26 is an order granting a personal services exemption for Claudie St. Just.
I believe that item was pulled from the agenda.
Is it?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes, I have something
You're
right here,
all
Mr.
right.
Clerk. Per yourself and the city solicitor.
All right. We just weren't sure people were listening.
As of March 23rd.
Okay, item number 27. Trying to open it. Item number 27 is an order regarding the designation of Harvey W. Lever Square, whereas Harvey W. Lever served his country and was honorably discharged from both the United States Air Force and the United States Navy, and whereas Harvey Lever voluntarily and proudly served his country with his boots on the ground during the Vietnam War, and whereas it was determined that his exposure to Agent Orange not only caused him to be designated as a 100% disabled veteran, but also caused him to suffer from an illness that was ultimately determined to be the primary cause of his untimely death. And whereas having received the favorable recommendation from Commissioner of Veteran Services Gene Cristiano, therefore be it ordered by the City Council of the City of Everett as follows, in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 17, Section 17-1, names and destinations, erection of signposts, of revised orders of the City of Everett, a fitting memorial be dedicated and named in honor of Harvey W. Lever at the location of 34 Winthrop Road or 2863 Elm Street, and be it further ordered that once approved, the Board of Public Works has the appropriate pole sign and marker placed on location that is deemed available for same as described above.
Favorable action on the order.
Motion made and seconded for favorable action on the order. Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Counsel Capone.
Yes.
Counsel Del Sola. Counsel DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counsel Hanlon.
Yes.
Counsel Matusky. Yes. Counsel McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counsel Napolitano. Yes. Counsel Sani.
Yes.
Counsel Simonelli.
Yes.
Counsel DePiero.
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
the order has passed. And that was item number 26 on our posted agenda, Mr. Clerk. So now we're on 27.
Item number 27, a resolution sponsored by Counsel Peter A. Napolitano, Director of Community Development, appear next meeting to provide an update on Florence Street Park and the date when the park will be open to the public at the request of abutting neighbors.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend this resolution to include Councilors Capone and Matusky.
Second motion.
Motion made and seconded to add Counselor Capone and Matusky as sponsors. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to refer this to the next meeting of Government Affairs, Public Safety, Public Service, and invite both the Director of Community Development, a representative from the Mayor's Office, the sponsors, and I'll make sure that the residents are also aware of that.
Is there a second? Motion made and seconded to refer this to the Government Operations Committee and invite the individuals the council requested. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 28.
Under 28, an ordinance sponsored by Council Anthony DePiero, President, that Section 1-8, general penalty is hereby amended by removing Section A and adding in its place the following new paragraph, Section 1-8, general penalty, and there's some wording there. The recommendation is to refer to Legislative Affairs, Mr. President.
Make a motion to Legislative Affairs?
Motion made and seconded to refer item number 28 to the Legislative Affairs and Elections Committee. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? We have adjourned.